Once upon a time. Makes you think of something really quite beautiful. Maybe a prince in shining armour, maybe a beautiful princess, maybe a wicked witch, maybe 7 little dwarfs. Fairy tales, like myths and legends, have been around since as long as can be remembered. An investigation done by a Dr. Turani at the University of Durham, at Durham University, with the hypothesis literary versions of Little Red Riding Hood were originally based on oral folktale, showed that there was a high chance that Charles Perrault's version of Little Red Riding Hood was originally based on folktale, so it proved his hypothesis correct. Meaning that there is actually little chance that we could ever be able to pinpoint where fairy tales were first conceived. Maybe around a campfire, when people still wore skins because they didn't know how to make cotton into clothes yet. The Little Red Riding Hood is a folktale, is a fairy tale, both. But stories like The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland, they do have the same sort of magic, but they're novels that they have that you know where they came from. There's no question about where Lewis Carroll found his inspiration for Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. The little girl Alice that he knew from the university that he worked at as a maths lecturer. You can find his diaries that shows him meeting Alice, him knowing Alice, him creating the story around this girl that he knew, this character. He created a character from this girl, and you can see that. There's no question about whether it's folklore, folks' tales, or anything like that. But you can see that development in these diaries that Lewis Carroll left. Whereas there's nothing. There's just evidence that these stories were told long, long before Charles Perrault wrote it down. In my very personal opinion, a fairy tale is a story with wonder and magic, but also you hear so many versions. Everyone has a different version. Okay, you can ask someone and they will come up with something beautiful, and someone else will come up with something equally as beautiful but can be completely different. Whereas if you ask someone to tell you the story of Alice in Wonderland, then they will tell you Alice in Wonderland. They will tell you the story that Lewis Carroll wrote down. Maybe leaving out a few bits because people don't always remember certain bits. Did you know that Lewis Carroll's original version of Alice in Wonderland that he wrote for Alice, the young girl, originally didn't actually have the Mad Hatter's Tea Party in it? He added that after when it was going to go into publication. True story. In this video, I talked to both friends and an expert. Well, an expert. She's an English teacher. Of their experiences and their own opinions of the subject. And, I very much hope you enjoy it. Hello, Nina.
Hello.
Hello, Ms. Boyd.
Hello.
Hello, Vanya.
Hello.
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 Describe what you think of fairy tales in 5 words.
Happy. Child-friendly. Can that count? It's handmade. Grim. Bit depressing.
You contradicted yourself there.
I know, but they can be both, because Grimm's fairy tales switch Disney fairy tales. Comforting. Sometimes.
What do you think of fairy tales to you in 5 words?
Oh gosh,
Could you
that's
describe
quite
it?
difficult. Magical. Characters that are believable but also imaginary. Creative. Child-friendly. Sometimes moral.
Describe what you think of fairy tales, in your opinion, in 5 words.
5 words.
Well, as in normal fairy tales. Fairy tales, in your opinion, 5 words. They're quite,
Some of them are quite dark. Yeah? Some of them make little sense. They're appealing. A little sense to be kind of one word.
Yeah, let's go with it.
Right. They're appealing. Most of them happy endings, I think. 5. And meaningful.
Meaningful. Okay.
They all have a meaning behind them, more or less.
Yeah. How would you describe fairy tales in 5 words?
Oh,
Extraordinary. Magic. Secret.
what should I say?
Fun. And extravaganza.
Thanks. Did did you enjoy fairy tales when you were younger?
Loved them. I like fairy tales when I was younger.
Do you still enjoy them now?
Yes. I'm 18 and I watch them when I'm ill because it's making me feel so much better.
Did you enjoy fairy tales when you were younger?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I enjoyed sort of escaping to a different world.
Do you still enjoy them now?
I do actually. One of my language A-level students is studying Cinderella, looking at the similarities and differences and how the stories change over the years as well, which has been really interesting.
Do you enjoy fairy tales?
Well, they're alright.
They're alright.
I mean,
no, that's okay.
I mean, I don't actually quite like them. I like they're appealing.
Did you enjoy fairy tales when you were younger?
Yes, very much indeed.
Do you still enjoy them now?
Yes, I love those Pixar movies and stuff.
I like them too. I'm brilliant.
Good, isn't it?
Which fairy tales are some of your favourites? Fairy tales. Not just Disney films.
Fairy tales. I do like Little Mermaid.
Which fairy tales did you grow up with?
Oh,
I,
the English name.
What was it in Turkish?
The Kül Kedisi.
What's that?
What's the two bad sisters and the
Cinderella.
Cinderella? Can we consider that as fairy tale?
Yes.
Okay. Little Red Riding Hood. Might be. Alice in Wonderland. That's it really. I mean, maybe it will come again.
You've heard of Hans Christian Andersen?
Yes.
He wrote the one of the older versions of
Yeah,
Little
he
Mermaid. He made it so that every step she took while she had legs felt like walking on broken glass, and the princess had to dance, and she did because she thought he'd fall in love with her. She didn't, and
yeah.
she killed herself.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Suicide.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a fair enough story to write, you know, and it's a different time back then, so they could kind of write whatever they wanted, and it's still. But I guess now, because kids are so sensitive these days, you know, Disney thought, hey, let's make this a great story, not make it sad, let's make it a happy ending, let's make it brilliant, and so obviously kids love it. I loved it. I like both versions. I think they're both pretty valid. You know, you can have both. But obviously kids know the Disney version more. I think,
Yeah.
for the happy ending, definitely.
Especially when you're younger.
Oh yeah. It's good to know both sides, I think. Both stories.
Have you heard of the Brothers Grimm?
No, I'm afraid.
They were two brothers who lived in the 1800s, and they rewrote this a lot of fairy tales, but they ended the stories slightly different to how they are now. In one of their stories, in their version of the Cinderella, the ugly stepsisters, so that their feet would fit in the shoes, they cut off parts of their foot to be able to fit it in. But the prince noticed because there was blood everywhere.
Right. Oh my goodness, okay.
And then at the end, when Cinderella got married to the prince, she had two pigeons on her shoulders, and they pecked out the sisters' eyes for their wickedness and falsehood.
Wow, that was an interesting way of seeing those stories.
Yeah, it's.
Will be worth watching them actually.
There's a film.
There's a film? Alright then.
Okay, how would you describe exactly what a fairy tale is?
Great question. I don't know. I would guess something that's not exactly true, completely fictional, something that you kind of wish would happen. I think it depends on what fairy tales you're wanting me to describe, like it's the Hans Christian Andersen or the Grimm fairy tales or the Disney fairy tales. They're both unrealistic on so many levels, but you know, Disney are happy unrealistic. Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen totally unhappy on the list. So I think it depends, but definitely fictional and something just to take the mind off things, I guess.
How would you describe what a fairy tale is? What do you think it is?
It will be piling up a story of author's imagination, putting nice stories together for children, mostly, probably. And I cannot add. Let me think. It's a story from the dreams, story from the thoughts, something like that.
How have you found that fairy tales may have affected literature from your point of view as a teacher?
I think in many ways the stories were originally for adults and were part of an oral culture across all countries around the world, and that they've helped to structure some of the morals and some of the urban legends that we still see as very valuable today.
Do you find that children who maybe like fairy tales and the magic behind them, do you find that they may be more creative in their writing? And
definitely, and I think fairy tales is useful for young children because they have very clear stereotypes as well. So you've got a very obvious bad guy and an obvious hero, and you're rooting for them, and it helps children understand how to create character and structure a plot as well.
Okay, so you said about stereotypes.
Yeah.
There's, of course, most fairy tales have a damsel in distress,
Yeah.
and it's very gender roles.
Yeah.
What do you think on
I think that in itself can be a negative. However, the fact that often they're set in a different type of world to ours make children aware that these don't have to be the forms that we follow, and Disney and other animated people have kind of challenged it in some of their more recent fairy tale type stories that they've done, where you've had a female heroine who actually saves the village or saves the people as well. And if we think about urban legends that link to fairy tales, like Maid Marian, she was quite a heroic character alongside Robin Hood, if you like, that shows that women can be empowered and strong too.
Okay. Did you know many Western culture fairy tales before you started working in like America and became part of British culture?
Yes. In the university, I finished American culture and literature, but it was also it helped us a lot in the because we read lots of stories from the mythology. Lots of from the, even though it was American culture, it was British, English culture, English history. Western mostly, yes. It helped.
Did you find when you read the American ones, did you find that they crossed over a lot with Turkish ones?
Yes, I think it was just like a paraphrasing or changing into the cultures and redoing them, revising them to the culture what we are living in. Yes.
You're part Indian.
Yeah.
Did you grow up with both Indian and the Westernized fairy tales?
I had a few, but mostly obviously British because I lived here since I was 1. But no, we did have some Indian stories among used to read to me.
Did you have a particular one that you enjoyed?
Eki and Doki.
What's that about?
So like, it's 2 sisters. One of them has 1 hair, Eki, that means 1. Doki has 2 hairs. And like one of them goes, one with 2 hairs goes off into the woods one day. She tells all these people, gives them her hair, and then eventually she's out of hair. Witchkin says, "Oh, I'll help you with that." And then she gets a full head of hair. So and then she comes back. It was just like, "Oh my god, I want that too." But then she just kind of storms past everybody who asks for help, and then she loses all her hair because she didn't help in return. And that was like a different story.
Oh. So the next question was, you find they overlapped a lot, but that doesn't seem to have anything to do with any connection with
most of the stories, fairy tales in India, I don't think have overlapped. But,
Okay. Thank you so much for your input into my documentary.
Thank you for waking me up to do this.
No problem.
Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
That's all. Okay, well, thank you. That's it. Thank you. And that was fine. Thank you very much for
Thank
doing
you very
the
much
video.
for including me in this project.
Fairy tales can appeal to everyone, and they change throughout time and depending on the culture. In the 1800s, the Brothers Grimm wrote fairy tales of woe, and now you can search YouTube for a modern fairy tale and you find Tinderella by College Humor. Different types of fairy tales appeal to different people, but there is something for everyone, and personally I think that's the beauty of them. Thank you.
Bowing.